welcome back. This is CS Discoveries, Unit 2, Lesson 13, RGB Colors and Classes. For the overview in code.org, it says this lesson covers classes and custom colors. The class first learns how to specify custom colors using RGB, which is red, green, and blue, values, then applies these colors to a new Four Seasons webpage which uses CSS classes. Using classes, the class adds more style to the Four Seasons webpage, then use them to style their personal websites. So, a CSS class, an identifier that allows multiple elements in an HTML document to be styled in the same way. So our new code is RGB, red, green, and blue. So you will also need to have this activity guide for RGB colors downloaded as well. So the purpose of this lesson is to, it says here in code.org, up until this point, the only styling students have been able to do is styling by element, which means that every element of a particular kind has the same exact style. So like what we did before in CSS, we would style H1, and that applies to all of the H1 elements. So classes allows for web developers to group together a set of elements they want to style. This means students can single out a certain element they want to style, or group together elements from one or more types of elements. Once elements are in a class, the class can be used as a selector in a style rule. A note: single elements can also be selected by ID, but this type of selection is possible with a class applied only to that single element. Because ID selection does not add any extra functionality, it is not taught in this course. So what we are going to do, so far you've been using color names to choose colors for your web pages. That means that you can only use the colors that someone else has already thought of. Today you're going to learn how to mix new colors for your pages. So what I would like you to do is open up that activity guide, this RGB colors. So it says you're going to go to code.org or the Code Studio, and you're going to use the RGB widget at the beginning of the progression to complete the activity guide. Okay, we're going to go through a couple of them together. So open up that activity guide or print it out, and then go ahead and press continue on here. Let's see if this opens up our widget. Okay, perfect. So, on the computer screen, we mix colors by combining red, green, and blue. In the next few levels, you'll have a chance to use the color mixer to choose your own colors, then put them into a web page. So, what I would like you to do first, let's take a look here. So it says, all colors, whether they have names or not, can be described by the level of red, green, and blue light it takes to make them. This is called RGB value, short for red, green, and blue. So it says Bubble 2 color matching. Click Run to start the widget on Code Studio and try out different RGB values and see what colors they make. The sliders adjust the levels of red, green, and blue, and the mixer shows you how they combine to make the different colors. For each of the 5 colors on the screen, match it to the CSS code that will make the color on your web page. So this one says Papaya Whip or Beige. So it says RGB 216, 191, 216. Let's see here. So it said 216, 191, 216. 216. Can I just type in there? No. Goodness. Can I go up? Perfect. You can use the arrow keys. 191, 216. Okay, so that one is our beige. Okay. You can do salmon. Okay, so I can do salmon. I could do 255, 239, 213. Okay, so that one's salmon. This one for C We want 250, 128, and 114. Okay, that one, oh wait, no. 250, 128, 114. That one says in here that, oh, got it. My goodness. All right. What we need to do is we need to match the colors after we've run them with which one they are in the worksheet. That makes sense? Okay, so a beige, an orange, a steel blue, a violet, and a green. So this one was 250, 128, 114. This looks like a salmon to me. So I'm going to draw a line from salmon to the letter C. Does that make sense? I was just going through them and not doing that right. So if I were to go to my review, okay, this one should go to C. Okay. Now if I did 70, 130, 180, 70, oops, 130, 180. Okay, it's kind of a blue. Looks like a steel blue, because it's not violet or green or beige. I'll draw that one there. Okay. 107, 142, 35. Okay, for E. 107, 142, and then 35. Okay, that one says that it's number 5. This drab green or drab olive, it's a green. Okay, and then I'm going to have you do the last two. Okay, so that's what you should do for that one. You'll have to plug in A and B again and then match them up. Okay, whichever ones they match up to up here, that will be the ones that you need to select. So go ahead and press finish once you're done with that. And press continue. Alright, winter color. In the next few levels you'll be finding seasonal colors for our website. Here you'll need to find the RGB values for a wintry blue color. Click run to start the widget. Adjust the levels until you match the wintry blue color at the bottom of the widget, so it's down here. Write the RGB values on your activity guide. You'll need them for the activity. So you can already see here, if you pause and read, we press run, 195, 230, and then 255 is that wintry blue. Okay? So on here, choose the red, green, and blue levels for your seasonal colors, then write the CSS code that will make them on your web page. So in there you'll need to put 195, 230, 255. Okay, 195, 230, so 195, using this with my mouse, not very good, 230, 255. Okay, and then we'll come up with, it'll be, we'll come back to the CSS code for what they will look like on your, we'll take a look at them in the CSS code for what they look like for each one. Let's see. Alright, I am going to open up that new tab, okay, and I'm going to talk you through this next one because I don't want to give away any of the other answers on here. So, what we are going to do for this next one, so go ahead and press finish. You should come up to the summer yellow. So go through the summer yellow, okay, move the scrolls for red, green, and blue, and come up with summer yellow. Okay, I'm going to give you one hint for those of you that are watching the video and actually listening and paying attention. The red dial for red should be at 255. So leave red at 255 and mess with the green and the blue. Okay? Mess with the green and the blue, and then get the summer yellow to match down on the bottom. Alright? Get it as close as you can. Okay, and then as soon as you think you've got it, go ahead and press finish. I'm actually going to make sure that mine is correct. My last slider here. I'm going to press my finish button. Okay, so you should be on lesson 13, level 5. This one is spring and autumn colors. So press run. So you just come up with any colors that you feel are spring or autumn colors. Okay, adjust the levels until you find a spring color you like, then write down the values on your activity guide, and then do the same for an autumn color. You'll need the RGB values for the next activity. So whatever you come up with, write them here and here. Spring, time of leaves turning green, turning, a nice pretty green. Autumn, you have your oranges, your reds, if you wanted to do like purples, anything like that, whatever you choose, go ahead and choose them. I do not want any of them to be the ones that you have up here in this activity guide, but they can be close. Okay, don't make them exactly like those, but they can be close. Okay, we're going to talk about that CSS code next, so as soon as you finish that in code.org, go ahead and press continue. Alright, so you should be on lesson 13, level 6. It says in this page, here I will pop it over here. Okay. It says in this page the web developer has used classes to give some of the words our winter color. Look at the HTML code for the winter words. Why is snowy the only winter word without the winter color? Okay. So if we look here, got all of these words here, and snowy does not have the class for winter. See that? It says class equals winter, and then after the closing, so they added in something here, a class, to the H tags, but they didn't inside of this one. Okay? Look inside the style sheet to find the rule. So it says add the code to the HTML that gives snowy the same winter blue as the other words. So we go right here after the H5 and we type in class, and then I press tab, and in the quotes I'm going to type in winter. Okay, and I've still got my H5 tag that's closed, and now my snowy turned winter colored. Okay, and it says look inside the style sheet to find the rule that makes all the words in the winter class blue, and check whether your RGB numbers are close to the ones in the style sheet. So we're going to go to CSS styles. Okay, if we look, there's one that says winter. Alright, 195, 230, 255, 195, 230, 255. Perfect. Okay, so discuss with your partner how the code works. So .winter, if we put down this color and then RGB 195, so color colon RGB. So right here for our code we should have color Actually, I'm just going to type this. Color, colon, RGB, and then in quotes, 195, 230, 255. Okay, because that's what we've got here, and then a semicolon at the end. All right, let me okay, that's what we should have. Color, colon, space, RGB, and then parenthesis 195, comma 230, comma 255, parenthesis, semicolon at the end. Okay, I'm going to change the font so it's a little easier to read. 2 Times New Roman. Make it a little bit bigger for you to read. So that's what it should be. You can have a space here, space here. You can even have a space at the end too, but okay. So color, colon, RGB 195, 230, 255, and then do that for your summer, spring, and autumn colors as well. Okay, on that worksheet, and that worksheet should be done. Okay, so on code.org, go ahead and press finish here. So, classes. Sometimes you only want to style some specific elements of a type instead of all elements of one type. Classes allow for a group of elements to have their own unique style. This applies to elements on the same page or on a separate page, or on separate pages, as long as all the pages link to the same style sheet. To style using classes, so first you need to mark the elements in HTML that will be in that class. Second, you need to write a style rule set for that class. To write a rule for a class of elements, the selector for the rule set has a dot before the class name. For example, the code below would style the fancy class, which has been set up for a paragraph element. So the HTML file, it says the P, so we're going to be using the P tag, we're going to be editing the P tag. We are going to call on the class equals fancy, and then we're going to have our text here, and then we're going to close our P tag. Okay, if we just did the P tag bad day, it would turn out like this. But if we do this fancy, this dot fancy in our CSS file, our style.css, and then call on it, hold on, this video finished. Okay, if we finish, if we've got this CSS file that says dot fancy, and we call on that, it's going to turn that paragraph into a fancy text paragraph. Okay, so we'll practice that a couple times. So your winter words should have all the same color and font. Find the CSS rule set in the style sheet that gives the winter words their style. Okay, so go to styles.css. We're going to find this rule set in the style sheet that gives the winter words their style. So if we look, these are the winter words. It's just giving them their color. Doesn't look like we have a style. Okay, because we're in our CSS rule set. Add a rule that changes the font of the winter words. It can be any font, but it will need to be different from that of the other 3 seasons. So winter is going to have a font. We can do a font family. And we can do fantasy if you want. We could do is fancy one of them? Maybe not. Cursive. Okay. Can do any of those that we'd like. Okay. Add any other rules that you would like into your winter words. So if we want any of these winter words to be, if we want them to be a different font size, that would change all of the font sizes. If we want them to be, right now it's got all the text being aligned, we could choose any other rules that you would like to add in, you can add in, but we're just going to add in the font family. If you want to, I don't think that's going to change it, no. Okay, make sure that we do font family. I'm just going to leave it at the cursive one. Okay, so you can add in whichever one you'd like, and then or any other things into that winter one as well. So that changed, if you notice, it changed the H1, 2, and 5 all at the same time. Okay? So go ahead and press finish. Alright, now that your winter class is ready, you can start on the other seasons. Find the empty CSS rule set in the style sheet that gives the spring their word styles. So we're going to go to style.css. We're going to go to spring. Okay, add 2 rules. One to give the text your spring color from earlier in the lesson, and another to give the text a different font size, or decoration. Okay, so let's add in our color. Okay, what is our color from before? Okay, what did you pick for your color? Mine was, let's look here. One second, getting there. That's my winter blue one. Alright, my summer yellow one was, if I do RGB, mine was 255, 230, 100. So if I scroll down, okay. Then I'm going to add in a font family. I just like kind of looking at some of these, seeing what we can add in with fonts. We'll add a font family in. Let's do, we did cursive for the first one, let's do fantasy for this one. Okay, now if you notice, this isn't changing. Okay, why is that? Okay, if we think about it, we've only changed it in the CSS. We haven't changed it in our HTML page. So we need to go back to our index.html. I need to go down to my spring right here, and in all of these tags I need to type in class and then spring. Right? Boom. There's my style. Everything's been added in. Class, spring. Inside of the tag. If you notice, I'm inside of the H5 tag here. Class, spring. Do that to all of these tags. Okay, now if I scroll down, all of my tags have been changed. Okay, so that was my spring one. And I actually should change that color. Let's see here. Because my spring color wasn't that one. I'm going to want my spring color to be more of like a green, right? I want probably a pretty nice green. Alright, so I'm going to go back into my style.css and I'm going to change my spring color because I realized that I used my summer color. So I'm going to change mine to 40, 200, and then 80. And now that's my nice spring color, nice green. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and press finish for my spring color. Alright, so now I've got my summer and my autumn one. It says inside the style sheet, create a new rule set for a summer class. Add a rule that set the text in the summer class to your summer RGB color. Add the summer class to the summer elements in the HTML page and do the same for autumn. So I've got all of my text in, so I need to go to my style.css and I need to add in a new style or a new rule set with my class being summer. So I need to press dot summer, and I'm going to create this inside of a function, and I'm going to add in some color. This is going to be my summer color, which was RGB. This one was 255, 230, 100. I'm going to add in a font family. Whoops. Font family. And this one's going to be inherit. I'm just going to going down the line. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to make my autumn one. MN, ATUMN. And then I'm going to put in my brackets. And I'm going to add in color. Let's go to my autumn one. Autumn's going to be kind of a, thinking kind of a brown, orange, maybe a red, like a dark red. So I'm going to bring up the reds a lot. Lots of red. So I'm going to do a nice dark red. I'm going to click RGB 156 39 6. Okay, that's the end of that one. And then I'm going to do my font family. This is going to be monospace because that's the next one. Let's take, whoops, and then I need to go to my index and I'm going to add in my summer. My class is summer. This one, I'm just going to copy and paste this in. Okay, this one's going to be class autumn. Make sure that that's how I spelled it. AUTUMN. AUTUMN. Copy and paste it with the space. And paste it after all of my H tags. Now if I look, I've got my summer, I've got my fall. Alright? So, I can press finish. Alright, your turn to decide what you want to style. Play with some of the classes, styling, and RGB colors to improve your personal website. Make sure you have completed the checklist below. Take a screenshot of your homepage and save it to somewhere on your computer so you can find it for later. So, checklist. Somewhere on your site, give text a particular color using RGB values. So I'm going to go to my style.css and I'm going to make a class schedule. I'm going to make a schedule class set. Okay. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to add in color. And I want my class schedule color. I'm going to go with, I like those kind of autumn colors. So we're going to do, it's going to be RGB, we're going to do like a nice orange. And we're going to make it have a font family of sans serif. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my text there, into my index.html where it's got my p tags, and I'm going to add in that class schedule. And I'm going to copy and paste that in to all of my p tags here. I'm going to leave that one. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my style.css. I'm going to make that one have a font size of 20. Let's see what 24 pixels does for me. It's a little big. Let's do 16 pixels. That might be what it was at. Let's try 18. Okay, we're going to do 18 pixels. We're going to do, I think this might be how you do it. No. Maybe style. I was thinking that the font style could give me one to do it, to make it like bold or strong. Oops. Change my background color to be like a black so that I can see everything. And I am going to make that we are going to go in and I am going to make that H1. I'm going to make those H1s and H colors just some different colors. My H1, instead of being this fire brick color, I'm going to add in an RGB color. We're going to do why isn't that visible? Strange. I should be able to add in that H1 and change that color, but I'll look into that. Alright, so for your assignment, what I would like you to do is I would like you to change around, like if you look here, it says somewhere on your site, give text a particular color using RGB values. You can do that by just putting that in down here, down at the bottom. Okay, and then on your lists page, give all of the items the same background color. So go to, I think mine is my top 10 games. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a, if I go to my style.css, let's just make one called list. I'll do this one with you. Okay, and it wants us to do the text not text decoration. It's going to want us to do the background color. Okay. On your list page, give all the list items the same background color. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to just change this background color, and let's do, on that one there, I'm thinking, I want to go with, I'm going to do dark orange. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my list page and I'm going to add in a class after all these list items. List. Is that what I did? List. I don't think that's going to work. So I added in another background color. We're going to have to add in text background. Nope. Wonder if I cut it out of this and put it into my, nope. Let's take a look here on code.org and see what we got. Alright, so what they did is on their, let's take a look at their list page. Oops. Alright, so on their recipe, they did a recipe page. And what they did is they have a menu item class. So what they did is instead of changing this CSS styles for everything else, what they did is they have their HTML here for their style.css. So this one's their CSS that they're going to have for their index. Then what they did is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this as, I'm going to double click on this a little bit, or click on it once again slowly. This is going to be home-style.css. Okay. Now if I change that to home-style.css, I need to make sure that I go here and change it to home-style.css. Okay. Oops. Okay, in my index. So I went into my CSS over here. I did home-style.css. Then I went to my index and changed it there as in this head link. Okay, the reason that we're going to do that is because we're going to have different styles for different pages, and it's best if we keep them slightly separated so that they don't overlap like they were in that last one there. Okay, so if I were to make one for my lists, okay, if I were to make one for my list here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Add CSS. I'm going to double click on it, and this one is going to be my list-style.css. Okay, now inside of this style.css, I can add in all of my CSS styles that I want to add in that involve my my colors, my H1s, anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, I want my, let's Let's see what else they've got here. Okay, I'm going to do kind of like a aqua blue on this style. So I'm going to add in a menu item, but instead of that I'm going to do list item. Okay, so I typed in list item there. I'm going to change the background color to that dark orange. Okay, I put in some padding. I'm going to change the color of the text to black. I'm going to leave it at black. There's not going to be any text decoration, and it's going to be text aligned to the left. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is so this leaves everything how it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my top 10 games, and now inside of my list items, let me just double check here and make sure that this is correct. Okay, inside of my list items, I'm going to put in my class. Okay, they did. Okay, I actually don't want this text line because it's automatically going to do that for a bulleted list. I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have the padding. Whoops. Just want the background color and the color of the text to stay the same, so I can change it later. So this one we're doing that, give all the list items the same background color. So I'm going to go into my recipe, and right by this OL, I'm going to put in class list item. Why is it not working? LISTITEM. Oh, ha. To link my style sheet. Okay, so I'm going to link my style sheet on my top 10 games list. So my list web page, I need to go in and link that. Okay, so I need to put in list-style.html or .css. Okay, that's probably why nothing was showing up before, because I didn't have any web pages or any CSS styles linked. We all make mistakes. Okay, so now anytime that I want to, now that this list-style.css is linked, anytime that I want to change any styles on this page, I can just go into my list-style.css and change anything in there. Okay. Use classes to style at least 2 other elements of your own personal website. So, what I would recommend for this assignment, okay, I know this video is getting pretty long, but what I would like you to do is to go in, and I would like you to create a style.css sheet and link it to all of your pages. Okay, so I've got this class schedule.html. Okay, what I should do is I should create a schedule-style.css page for this page and link it in my head of that page. Okay, and then I can go in, and anytime that I'm editing this page and want to create any classes or create any styles, I can just do that on this page. Okay, I've got my home-style.css, that's for my home page. I don't have one for this life goals. So what I should do is I should create a life goals-style.css page and link it in the head to this one. Okay, I've already got my list one made for this one right here, my top 10 games, which is my list page. So that is your assignment, and then you need to use classes to style at least 2 other elements in your personal website. So go in, add in another class into any of those styles. Okay, this list style has this list item. I changed the background color or the color. Okay, there's tons and tons of other things that you can do. Just type in a letter and see what it automatically populates and see if you want to change one of those things. Okay, from this example, there's background color. Remember there's padding, which is the space around the item that you have. There's the color, which is going to change the text. There's the text decoration, text alignment. You've got margins, font size, font family, text alignment again, text decoration, border radius, border width, border style, float, height, all sorts of different things. So if you can't think of any, look up CSS styles look up CSS styles and see if they've come up with a list of ones that you can use. Okay, just real quick, I'm going to look up one. All right, let's see here. All right, so what I did is I Googled CSS styles list. I'll pull it over here. CSS styles list, and I clicked on this third one. Okay, and here are all of the different styles in CSS that you can put in. Okay, and it even tells you a little example of each one. Okay, all I'm asking is that you create a couple different classes. So if you want to group like all of these lists together and style them in a separate way, create a couple different classes. I want you to show me at least 2 different ones that you've made, and then put some CSS style elements in there. All right, at least 2 inside of there so that I know that there's a reason that you're grouping them together. All right, that is your assignment for lesson 13. That was unit 2 in CS Discoveries on code.org. Okay, so either submit that electronically by taking a screenshot using your snipping tool, or come up and show me your example, and then you need to submit electronically or hand in your activity guide for this RGB colors. All right.